Good morning, everyone. My name is Antoinette van der Water. I'm a PhD student at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And under supervision of Professor Rob Sloto, Michelle Henley, Lucy Bates, and Enrico Di Minin, I've been investigating the broader value of elephants for society, the drivers of human-elephant coexistence, and on the development of an integrated framework to balance conservation and human well-being. So far, I've collected 700 community questionnaires, I've hosted 6 World Café workshops and conducted 8 in-depth interviews, and all this at 7 sites in 3 different countries, namely South Africa, Namibia, and Thailand. I selected World Café as a method to engage community members in dialogues. You divide a group in subgroups, they discuss important topics, and then they rotate to ensure that everyone has a say, and they can write their contributions on pieces of papers so that we have like these posters full with ideas of community perspectives. It is a very simple, informal, and inclusive way, and yeah, it really makes sure that everybody participates. So we had 3 different themes during these World Café workshops. The first one was centered around people's vision of the future. Conservation planning needs a shared vision of the people that are living with elephants. So in this session, people discuss their ideal future, like how do they see their future in the next 10 to 15 years. And we asked participants to think about what would make their community an outstanding place to live. So the process contributes to partnerships, to bottom-up solutions, which are all essential in realizing positive change. In the development of new conservation approaches, local people must be consulted and engaged in discussing and developing opportunities to benefit from wildlife. So the second theme was centered around the value of elephants for society, how people feel about living with elephants and what the impact of elephants is on their lives. By discussing the broader value of elephants and how elephants can contribute to community development, we found outcomes highlighting a need for more equity in access to the benefits of elephants and more inclusive approaches that provide opportunities such as skill development, education, and job creation. The third theme was centered around change, so how elephants can contribute to improving people's quality of life. In general, rural communities highlighted the cultural, educational, and economic value of elephants, and some people were already acknowledging elephants as an opportunity to combat poverty. So some of the statements that we collected through this process, community members stated that elephants are very important for people's identity. As a totem animal, they form the foundation of their family's beliefs. Elephants should live in the wild and be free. Elephants contribute a lot to our community and they have a right to exist just like us. If we understand elephants and approach them peacefully, they will be peaceful with us. This is from a human-elephant conflict hotspot area in Namibia. And when elephants die, they will be human in their next life. This is from a site in Thailand. Our country must have elephants. So this all highlights a change of focus in elephant conservation and management from a focus on elephant issues in isolation. This highlights that we need to gain a broader understanding and acknowledging the societal attributes and risk and the societal importance of elephants. So by assessing these values of elephants, we are developing an elephant value chain that represents all values related to elephants, from the instrumental values all the way on the left, to health values, like what are our ideals or what is desirable or important in life, all the way on the right. We tend to focus mostly on instrumental values and on protecting biodiversity. But elephants are flagship species and thus very important for the social system. They are valued for tourism, but also as cultural totems. They enhance our sense of place. They're ecosystem engineers. They're a conservation umbrella for protecting large habitats, thereby helping us to realize our conservation objectives. They motivate us to include communities in conservation approaches. So by including health values, it shows that new approaches are needed that are more sustainable, inclusive, and fair to all people. And by broadening our focus to consider all the benefits of elephants, we can conserve elephants and move forward in a more sustainable and just way. So we've been developing a framework towards a unified system of key environmental relations, the TASCA framework. It is a framework that promotes nature conservation and enhances human well-being. This part visualizes the natural system that we are quite used to and where we tend to focus on, where we want to conserve the integrity of nature by investing in mitigating the risk to the natural system, such as overexploitation, extinction, or climate change. So the natural system provides benefits to the social system for human usage. But there's a fence separating people from nature, which doesn't allow the value chain to fully reach the social domain and provides no incentives for local people to support conservation. So we end up with a broken system, which increases risk to the social system, such as inequality, distrust, or crime, which can also affect the natural system. By removing the fence, socio-ecological resilience or overall sustainability can be realized. Fences are restricting access, tenure, and ownership of nature, and are a reminder of the elitist, exclusionary approach that prevents access to the broader benefits of nature, and thereby contributing to social inequality. Elephants need space, and people need livelihoods and income. We can reconcile conservation and human well-being goals by looking at fully integrated natural and social systems. In doing so, the TASCA framework proposes 5 steps. The first one is investments that are needed to mitigate the risk and threats to the natural system. The second one is investment needed to improve sustainability of natural research use and social resilience by mitigating risk and threats to the social system, such as inequality, distrust, financial crashes, or crime. The third one centered around the biodiversity value chain, and we need to acknowledge that the flow goes in both directions, reflecting potential enhancements through nature investment at different points along the value chain. We often implement conservation actions at isolated points on the biodiversity value chain without considering social resilience. So the fourth point is balancing the integrity of nature and social cohesion, so number 2 and 3. And number 5 is moderating the use of ecosystem services to the social compact. In other words, to the filters of good governance, environmental justice, intergenerational legacy, and human rights. The TASCA framework bridges the gap between underground conservation practices and societal values, aspirations, and rights by removing the nature-people dichotomy and the physical and psychological barriers. For example, range expansion for elephants becomes possible by encouraging co-management structures and equal benefit sharing between all people living alongside with elephants. This advances biodiversity protection and promote sustainable development. I believe we need to change our way of thinking. Rather than putting a price tag on nature and by separating people from nature, we need to recognize that elephants have value far beyond their economic opportunities. Through fully integrated elephant conservation strategies and by recognizing justice, dignity, and rights, elephants can contribute to sustainable development, and we will move forward in a more just, equal, and sustainable world. I would like to thank the communities at the 3 research locations in Thailand, South Africa, and Namibia, our partner organizations, and of course my supervisors. And thank you so much for listening to this presentation.